Are you concerned about whether a judge will or will not consider the fact that your child's other parent is exposing your child to someone who is violent, has engaged in domestic violence, or has a violent criminal past? Are you concerned about how a judge will evaluate whether that child should be exposed to that person or not? Well, my name is Patrick Slaughter. I'm a family lawyer with LaFevor and Slaughter, and obviously, yes, a judge will take that into consideration. In fact, they're required to. That's one of the best interest factors that's enumerated in Tennessee Code Annotated 36-6-106. In fact, it is the 11th best interest factor, which says evidence of physical or emotional abuse to the child, to the other parent, or to any other person. Judges take violence seriously, and we all should. If the child is being exposed to situations where they could encounter domestic violence, judges are going to take that very seriously. Or if you have an ex-felon that has moved into your house and that felon has been involved in dangerous activity, yes, a judge is going to consider that very strongly. Even if the person hasn't abused you, but has abused someone else, a judge can still consider whether that person should or should not be around this child, and could take that into consideration about whether the child should be in your care, custody, and control if you're choosing to allow folks with this kind of violent propensity into your home. Now, this is very serious because you wouldn't believe how many times I get a call from both mothers and fathers where the other parent has decided to engage in a relationship, emotional relationship, with someone who may not be so desirable to be around children. I was flabbergasted at the number of folks that would decide, particularly young women, to engage in relationships with known sex offenders. A judge is not going to like the idea that there's a sex offender living in your home if you are trying to gain custody of your child. A judge is also not going to look favorably if you have been in a situation where you have suffered domestic violence repeatedly and continue to have this person about your person or in your life. Not making a moral decision, I understand abusive relationships are very difficult to escape from, and Lord knows that shouldn't be held against you in that sense. But what the judge is concerned about is whether the child could potentially be around that type of behavior. And the judges are going to look to protect the child. If they may not be able to protect you, but they will certainly protect the child. And that works both ways. You wouldn't believe the men that decide to get in relationships with folks who may have a history of themselves of engaging in risky or dangerous behavior. The statute particularly says that the judge can consider behavior that has affected people other than the parents and the child. It could be anybody. So if someone has, murdered someone, a judge is going to be very cautious about allowing that person to be around the child. Not saying it's impossible, but you better be prepared to present a whole lot of evidence about how this person has rehabilitated themselves and is no longer a threat, and don't expect the judge to just take your word for it. So if there's anyone in your life that has engaged in any kind of violent past, either with you or someone else, I think you need to look at that very seriously and come up with a game plan on how you're going to address it, because if you don't, a judge is likely to hold that against you. If you're concerned about something like this, pick up the phone, give us a call. One of our attorneys or myself would be happy to talk you through, is this a situation you need to be concerned about? If it is, how you might need to deal with that. But the most important thing is that you come up with a game plan to address it, because if you don't, you might be caught unawares by a judge and have to answer some very, very difficult questions.